Where will the top free agents for the quarterback position land this off season? Guys, the quarterback position, pretty important. And I know you want to know who's going to play quarterback for your favorite team. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to break down the top free agent quarterbacks and their landing spot in this video. We're talking about the bad man, Aaron Rodgers. We're talking about Russell Wilson. Where will he land? And a few others. So let me know in the chat what you guys think of the best landing spots for these veteran quarterbacks. But first, I want to start off with a trade idea. That's right, a trade idea, because there is one quarterback who has been left out of this discussion. He's not a free agent. He has to be traded. His name, of course, is none other than Captain Kirk Cousins. Kirk could be on the move this offseason, and I think a great landing spot for Kirk Cousins is one that's been heavily projected and predicted. It is the Cleveland Browns. And let me explain why I think Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski, why that is the best spot for Kirk Cousins. I think it's kind of obvious, but if Cousins is going to rebound after last year and all those interceptions and all those fluttery footballs that he had in the stomachs of defenders, I feel like it's in a familiar system. It's on a team with a coach that he's worked with before. And if you think of it really from Cleveland's perspective, they have the Deshaun Watson problem, the Deshaun Watson contract problem more specifically, and they need to be able to have a quarterback that is cost efficient. If Cousins is traded, if Cousins is released, he's going to be making money from the Atlanta Falcons. He is this year's Russell Wilson. This year's Russell Wilson. So that means he's going to be cheap, and he's going to be making money on someone else's books. So Cleveland needs somebody that is cheap because of Deshaun Watson. Cleveland might go after a rookie. Cleveland might try to pick somebody like Cam Ward at number 2 if he's still there, if Tennessee doesn't take him or someone trades up and drafts him. You know, maybe they could go with Shedeur Sanders, although I feel like that would be maybe a little too rich for my blood personally, but I feel like Cousins might be the best option because they're still trying to work out this whole Deshaun Watson project. They're still trying to transition from that. They're still trying to figure it out. And so a 1-year rental of Kirk Cousins, a 1-year removed from an Achilles, there's potential upside there that I don't think a lot of people see, just because what if Cousins is a lot closer to the Vikings player than he was the Falcons player another year removed from the Achilles injury? He's had more time to strengthen his lower body. He's had more time to work with his arm and his throwing motion to be able to manufacture some arm strength, right? That was a huge problem for him last year. And Stefanski knows what he does really well. So putting him in an offense, unlike Atlanta, where it was a completely new marriage, I feel like in Cleveland, it would be familiar. Plus, they have a pretty decent offensive line that can keep him protected. Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, enough to work with there from a pass catcher standpoint. So Kirk Cousins is the first guy that I wanted to talk about. Now let's get to our official list of quarterback landing spots for the top free agent names. The first guy that we have to discuss is none other than the great Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I feel like, honestly, man, has been a little underrated. Like, I feel like last year, yeah, it wasn't his best year. It wasn't prime Aaron Rodgers, MVP Aaron Rodgers. But if you look at some of his numbers, I mean, very comparable to some of the top half of the NFL quarterback play, right? And I think that the touchdown interception ratio, he's still going to protect the football. He's always been great at that. His decision-making, his intelligence, his football IQ, there's no messing with that, right? He is an all-time special player at that area of his game. Obviously, touch and accuracy did dwindle a little bit last year. I think a lot because of the lower half of his body not being as functional or mobile because of the Achilles, kind of like what we talked about with Cousins. But the arm strength is something that has not been removed because Aaron Rodgers has always been able to put some real pressure on the football without even having a platform to throw from. Now, places that I feel like Rodgers could go to. There's two teams that stand out, but the biggest one of all of them is the Las Vegas Raiders. And the reason I say the Raiders is, first, doesn't hurt that they have some money. Okay. Second, doesn't hurt that they're in Vegas. Third, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, my guy, Tom Brady, the GOAT, friends with Aaron Rodgers. Okay. If anybody understands how to work a team around Aaron Rodgers, it might be Tom Brady, especially considering the veteran aging quarterback aspect. Pete Carroll is another reason. Throw that on reason number 4. Okay. Pete Carroll faced Aaron Rodgers many times. Pete Carroll is aging. If Pete Carroll wants to win, Aaron Rodgers might give him the upside of doing so rather than a rookie, right? Where he'll have to develop that player, or an unproven quarterback. Rodgers has proven that he can bounce back in his career. We've seen it before. Aaron Rodgers has proven when he is counted out, when he has a chip on his shoulder, he is deadly, right? The Raiders have an underrated offensive line. I think it's young, and I think it's pretty good, honestly. And then they have Brock Bowers, who's an easy short yardage in terms of short route tree, intermediate level, get the ball out quick, let him do some magic. That's very easy for Rodgers, especially with that quick release that he has. Then you have Devontae Adams, potentially on the market. Okay, come back to the Raiders. That works for me. And also Jacoby Myers is very underrated as a wide receiver. So there's enough pieces there. Aaron Jones, a free agent. You could build the whole Aaron Rodgers club if you really want. The Raiders have all the money. Plus, they have money to fix their defense to a certain degree. And they already have a good foundation, being that they have Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby on their defensive line. And throwing Tyree Wilson doesn't hurt either. So I feel like the Raiders have enough there, especially with Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, Tom Brady. There's enough attractive factors. I feel like an alternative place where Rodgers could go is the Giants, because I think New York, he would be able to stay in New York, first of all, literally just stay in the same stadium. I would say that the Giants, Brian Daboll is under pressure, and this front office is under pressure. So bringing in a big name like Aaron Rodgers would get the fan base probably a little excited, but also it would buy them a little bit of time. I think it would also allow them to win now rather than a rookie, right? Would they trust a rookie to win them a bunch of games this year rather than an Aaron Rodgers, even a lesser Aaron Rodgers? Plus, they've got Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, a young promising tight end. I love Tracy at running back. So they've got some appealing pieces at wide receiver. And again, it feels like wherever Rodgers goes, Devontae Adams could follow. And their O-line, at least they got a left tackle in Andrew Thomas. They still need a little help there, but they did improve last year. Their defensive front is really good. Their coaching staff overall, Daboll is a quarterback whisperer. They would be interesting to see how they would mesh together in terms of their offensive personality. I feel like it would be pretty interesting to watch. I'm not exactly sure what it would look like, but I feel like Daboll has proven that with Josh Allen, with Daniel Jones, even with some guys that we've seen in recent years, Mr. DeVito there, or even Drew Lock, that he can get some good performances out of some lesser quarterbacks too. Not Josh Allen, but you understand what I'm saying. So Aaron Rodgers could definitely make that happen, right? But I would lean the Raiders just because I want that to happen. Seeing Aaron Rodgers play the Chargers twice a year, seeing Aaron Rodgers play Mahomes twice a year, Sean Payton, Bo Nix twice a year, being in the AFC, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, I want to see that a lot. It'd be very appealing. Plus, I would really like the Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady thing. That would also be fun for me as well, as a fan of specifically being, raised in this era. So I feel like, that would be pretty fun for me. The next quarterback that I want to talk about is none other than Sam Darnold, who's probably the biggest ticket item this offseason. Sam Darnold had an absolutely fantastic regular season last year. And I say regular season because he did not have the best playoff game. I don't think I need to tell you guys that. But also, he finished his season in a rough form. That being said, I still think he's going to get paid. And with the rumors coming out of the draft, it feels like Tennessee, with the first pick in the draft, is rather going to take a player at that spot like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, or they're going to pass a quarterback and they're going to trade back and still try to get one of those players, maybe trade back with the Giants, right? For like Cam Ward or something. So I like Tennessee to sign Sam Darnold, because if Tennessee is going to say, we don't need a quarterback at first overall, and we're going to play around and we're going to maybe come back next year with Will Levis or Mason Rudolph, I think you're delusional. So they need to spend some money. And yeah, it makes me feel confident that they will, because they have been. They've been spending money on Calvin Ridley. Bag, right? They've been spending money on Tony Pollard. Bag. They've been spending money on L'Jarius Sneed. Okay, they've been spending money on, they traded for Ernest Jones. That didn't work out. They've been spending money on all these guys. Offense, defense, like didn't matter, right? They tried to be this really good team. Right after Mike Vrabel left, yeah, you boot out the great coach and you get in another jabroni and you try to make it work with him. It doesn't work out, okay? But Sam Darnold could make it work. Why? Because we need to see if Tennessee needs a quarterback. Was it Will Levis? Was that the reason they were so bad? I mean, their roster was pretty good. Their defense was second in yards allowed. If they had a half-decent quarterback, they might have been cooking last year, right? So Sam Darnold, Callahan, you got to give Callahan a chance to see if he's a good coach. That's another thing. You can't just roll out there and bring in Mason Rudolph. Even somebody like Russell Wilson, like what is that really going to do for them in Tennessee? A rookie would be a solution, but just from everything that I have seen and read, feels like they don't want to go that way, or they want to try to pile up more picks in order to go that way. So with their tendency to spend some money in Tennessee, I think Sam Darnold makes sense. Plus Sam Darnold, I mean, he's only 27, like he's not old, right? He's not even that close to 30 yet. Feels like, and he's got some traits like arm strength, quickness in the pocket, can move a little bit. He's got, I think, a really nice deep ball last year. Quick release. You put him in the right infrastructure with the right pieces around him, and he's shown he can put top 10 production out there in the NFL, which is hard to find. So Tennessee might be attracted to a more solid solution to their quarterback group rather than a rookie. The next player is Justin Fields, who I don't know why, but like I feel like a lot of people want on their team, and I don't get it, bro. Like I'm past this Justin Fields experience, but one team that has not passed the Justin Fields experience is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are bought in to Justin Fields. I just personally no longer see the upside that was so appealing with him early in his career. I feel like he's kind of what he is. But that being said, it could be appealing to Pittsburgh because they've seen what he is to a certain degree. They've worked with him for an entire season at practice. They've seen the personality, which all checks out from what I've heard. Also, he's won some games for them already. He was very successful early last season. Arthur Smith will now have another offseason to work with Fields as their offensive coordinator and another offseason to work with the creative run aspects of what he can provide to their game. Because if you're going to start Justin Fields, you need to have him running the ball. I mean, there is no excuse because that is his biggest asset, is his athleticism, right? And I also feel like maybe another offseason where they have a cheap quarterback on a cost control contract that is good with the locker room, people like in there, has some upside in his game in terms of the athleticism portion. Passing game is still, far below average. But if you keep him limited in his passing game and you get a lot of quick throws and you make him an athlete in space and you get him throwing the ball down the field occasionally to George Pickens, these things can work. Plus, you can surround him with some talent on offense, maybe bring in another receiver where you can prop him up a little bit more because we've seen productive games and we've seen productive stretches from Justin Fields. So I could see how that would work. I think his style of play also does work in Pittsburgh because I think that his ability to run is something you can lean on in cold weather games, right? And nasty weather AFC North football games, right? So I could see that. I actually don't feel like there's a lot of other places where he'd be a starter. Like, I think maybe the Jets, if they're desperate, would take a look at Justin Fields. But I'm not sure, just because their new offensive coordinator is going to be a Detroit guy. You know, you would maybe think they would go after somebody that is closer to Jared Goff, but I could be wrong. I don't know. The Jets are a team that I feel like are going to be kind of left out with the last choice, it feels like. You've got the Raiders. Chip Kelly having a mobile quarterback makes sense, but I think that I don't know. We'll see about that one. I think that one's probably like the third possible option. I would not see him with the Giants, because the Giants, I think they need more of a secure option. And, the Vikings, I don't think so. Like, Tennessee, I don't even think so. Like, I think it's going to be one or two teams for Justin Fields. And Pittsburgh is the most obvious if they're going to move on from Russell Wilson, which they probably are. The next guy is Russell Wilson. Where will Russell Wilson go? Where will Russell Wilson land? Another offseason of Russell Wilson extravaganza. Who would have thought? Now, Russell Wilson was tough. As I was talking with my producer, I don't know, man. Somewhere in New York is the solution. For me, I lean towards the Giants, and I'll give you the reason I lean towards the Giants. First of all, I think they're slightly more appealing than the Jets. The Giants as a franchise are slightly more appealing. Now, I don't even have to get into like Malik Neighbors or the receiving core that I've talked about, or Brian Daboll, who I think is a more appealing coach to a quarterback than Aaron Glenn, because Aaron Glenn is a former corner. He's a defensive coach. There's not a lot appealing to him, in terms of quarterback position. But I feel like somewhere in that stadium is where Russell Wilson will land. But the reports about the Giants wanting a young player, a young rookie, and a veteran, and the veterans that they've singled out in these reports are Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. So, piecing that together, Russell Wilson, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Raiders, I feel like Rodgers would be first on their priority and Russell Wilson would be second. But what the Giants also need is they need a mature quarterback. They need like a guy that can go in there and lead a team and be positive vibes and positive energy, and be a guy that knows how to do this and how to accomplish this, because that's not what they've had in recent years. Like, Daniel Jones, even at his best, never gave you certainty of leadership. So Russell Wilson can certainly go in there and say, hey, I have a Super Bowl. I've been to 2 Super Bowls. I've been to this many Pro Bowls. I've had this many passing yards. I've done this. I've done that. And I also think that New York as a region, as a location, is good for Russell Wilson because of Sierra. I think that's something that's always been mentioned, that Russell Wilson wants to play in New York. So I think New York is the spot. The Jets, talking about that just briefly, I feel like it would work. I don't know if it would be successful. I probably would lean towards no. I mean, it's a new regime. It's a tough division. I don't think that Russell Wilson is at the point anymore where he's going to uplift a team. I think that the Jets would have to get back to playing fantastic defense. I think the Jets would have to get back to running the ball like they did early last year. But if you can do those things around Russell Wilson, he's kind of proven he can throw a moonshot out there every once in a while, a moon ball out there every once in a while. He can make a nice scramble drill every once in a while. And he can certainly protect the ball. That's something he's done very well throughout the course of his career. And he can manage a team well, I think. And in close games in the end, he can win games. He's also used to playing in bad weather. He played in Seattle for years where it's raining all the time. So Russell Wilson will be used to that slick football. That's also something that could be appealing to the Jets or the Giants. The final quarterback on this list is a guy that I think is kind of sleeping under the radar. Like, people are not talking about him. And that is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is interesting because he's shown flashes of promising play. That 2022 season, I believe it was really good. I mean, he had like borderline top 12 quarterback play that season, in my opinion. Brought a bad Giants team to the playoffs, and even they won a playoff game, and Daniel Jones played extremely well in that game. My landing spot for Daniel Jones is to stay in Minnesota, though. And the reason I say that is because I think if Sam Darnold does leave, I think the Vikings need a backup option for JJ McCarthy not being ready to play. That is my reasoning behind it. Daniel Jones already has been in the building of Minnesota, has worked with Kevin O'Connell. O'Connell's worked with Daniel Jones. From everything I've heard, that has been a successful relationship so far, and Daniel Jones picked up the offense well and all that stuff. Daniel Jones is certainly a bridge quarterback that you can get by with for the first few weeks if you want to transition to JJ McCarthy, and he can do a manageable job, especially with the best offensive line of his career, the best receiving core of his career. That certainly helps. The best offensive coaching of his career, one of the better defenses of his career. Like, you think about Daniel Jones in New York, he never had anything. Like, yeah, he had a couple good players like Saquon and things like that, but no like great unit, no great offensive line, no great offensive play caller, although I like Dayball. I think that was when he was at his best. And then defensively, no phenomenal defense like Brian Flores' unit in Minnesota. So you could see where Daniel Jones could be the next Sam Darnold. Now, I don't think that he is as athletic in terms of he doesn't have as flexible of a game. Like, his arm isn't as flexible. He isn't as creative. He isn't as aggressive as Sam Darnold in all aspects. Like, Darnold can be more of a scrambler. Darnold can get outside structure and make plays more. Daniel Jones can run, but he's like, the thing about Daniel Jones, which is why he might be good in Minnesota, is because he's so rigid. Like, he follows the structure. He follows the script. Okay, I was throw here. I'm going to throw here. It's a screen. I'm never, ever not going to throw this screen. Even if there's a guy that's going to sack me, I'm still going to try to throw it. Like, Daniel Jones, like, has to do what's on the page. But that being said, with a great offensive scheme, that's useful. Plus, you can use his legs in the run game, things like that. He's always been good at that sort of stuff. The deep ball might take a little bit of a shot in Minnesota. But, yeah, JJ McCarthy, I think they want to be their guy. But JJ McCarthy's coming back from a major injury. JJ McCarthy is still very young. JJ McCarthy needs to get up to NFL speed. He needs to show progression in that area. And this is a good roster and a good team that wants to compete in a tough division. Right. And if JJ McCarthy is not ready, going to a veteran like Daniel Jones makes sense. Right. This is kind of like the Trey Lance, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. Remember that in San Francisco, where I was like, the Niners picked Trey Lance. They want Trey Lance to be their guy, but Trey Lance isn't really that good, and they don't really think he's ready. So we're going to roll Jimmy Garoppolo back out there. And that ended up doing pretty well for them and actually ended up getting him hurt to Brock Purdy. And that's the story. But that's kind of what I'm thinking, where it's like, okay, we've got this quarterback that we can feel secure about in case things go wrong for us, so, and it's another one of the same guys from a New York team like Sam Darnold that was a former first round pick working with a former quarterback in Kevin O'Connell, trying to see the best areas of his game and manufacturing that, magnifying that, and putting it in Minnesota. So those are the top free agents and some landing spots.